Welcome back. This is the final fly. This is going to be the Elk Hair Caddis. If I had to guess, this is probably one of the top 2 selling flies in the history of modern fly fishing. The Elk Hair Caddis we did in the 3rd because there's more to it. We kind of want to go from the simplest to the most difficult. This is not a difficult fly, but it's a little more difficult than the X or the double wing. This fly, and we're going to have a little discussion. I had a hard time fishing this fly in a lot of places. I do pretty well with it out west, but I didn't do as well back east. And I would when I would fish it back there, I found that if I used really small hackle, I did a little better. I don't know why, and that may just be me. But I'm going to give you the hackle on this. I never understood why we palmered hackle on a fly, and I'm going to give you a little theory of what I think it is. You know, Johnny will put a little pop-up over my head or something. Kelly's theory. But I was watching a hexagenia one night, spinner, hit the water. And we used to palmer a lot of our hexes too. And I mean, that's a mayfly, it's that big, right? Got one right here, they're huge. They're like this big. And so, I mean, that's a giant mayfly. And so I'm sitting there and I watch this fly, and it's sitting on the surface, really slick water, right? It's kind of an edge. And it's sitting there, and they're quivering when they hit the water. And you see a lot of egg layers do that. And so, and I'm sure caddis, I've never really looked at a caddis that close when they're laying eggs, but I mean, a lot of them dive and, you know, go underwater. But, and this particular mayfly, it was quivering, and I was watching around it, and there are these little tiny shock waves going out away from that thing, just little tiny waves. And I immediately thought, well, maybe that was what this palmered hackle looks like. Maybe it gives a disturbance. I have no idea, it's just my theory. I mean, because it really bugged me. I don't know why we put hackle down something that doesn't, I mean, if you look at a caddis, it's very tubular. There's not much there. You barely can see its legs. And so, but the Elk Hair Caddis is for sure the #1 selling caddis that's ever been done. I mean, billions of them probably been sold. And it fishes pretty well, so I've never tried to change it. And so anyway, that's just kind of my theory on it. We're going to go through a couple other things on this fly, outside, you know, just tips about it. And so anyway, back to the fly. We're going to do the same as the other ones. We're going to use the TMC 100. I'm going to do it on a 14. And this is one, the Elk Hair Caddis. I do this fly in... I think what's the chocolate? That's an 8, isn't it?
I think it's a 10.
10? Yeah. We do it down to 10 then. We do the chocolate caddis in a 10. Jeremy likes to take these and just clip the hackle off, set a couple up front and squash the wing down and use it for a spruce moth. So this is a really versatile fly. I mean, as far as you can use it for a spruce, and the chocolate caddis are really big. The great gray sedge, that thing's big. So it's a versatile fly. So you're going to use this one with a lot more sizes. I mean, I'll take this down. When it gets to an 18, I'm not really a big fan of the, you know, having that much hackle. I'd rather have the other styles. But 10 through, you know, 16 for sure. So we're going to, but that's going to be the same hook regardless. It's going to be, this is a 100. If you want to do it on a 101, that's fine, flat eye. This is an 1180 Daiichi. I use this hook a lot. There's a lot of new hooks out, you know, the Fire Holes. There's just a bunch of them out now. And Fully Mills has a lot of good hooks. This is just a standard, this is your run-of-the-mill standard dry fly hook. And so from that, we're going to go to the body material, which is going to be super fine dubbing. Do this on all mine. This is one place where I would sub something on my peacock. We call it a peacock caddis. It's actually what I do for the chocolate caddis, and I use peacock ice dub. And on some of these bigger ones, I've had some pretty good luck on the spruce moth too. I use a little bit more shine in it. I don't know why, because it's really dull body, but it worked. But it's one of the, you might sub some materials here, especially in your bigger ones, just for fun. See how they work. But this one's going to be done with superfine, because that's what I've always used. And then, because this is going to have hackle on it, we're going to have, I'm going to use just a standard dark bar ginger neck. But you can see this here, it's already It's pretty picked over. But this is a great spot to start using these 100 packs. I mean, if you know you're tying, and I don't use these as much because I've been tying in necks forever, but this is an incredible value pack. You can use one of these things because you can see right there, it says 16. I grabbed 2 16s. I thought I had a 14. But they come in 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. But you get enough feather in here to do 100 flies. This is a really good way to get started with a fly because you're getting the right size hackle. It's already been hackle gauged. And I've got, that's the other thing I'm going to introduce here in a second, is the hackle gauge. But these have already been gauged. So you don't, when you buy a hackle, or a neck, excuse me, when you buy a full neck like this, you're getting hackle from, you know, 26s up to maybe a 12 or 10. And so it's not quite, I mean, it's more versatile if you're going to really get into the different sizes. But if you just want to tie up a couple, you know, 20, 30 size 16 tan Elk Hair Caddis, this is a really, really good way to go. And last on the materials, I'm going to have, because we're going to counter rib this, I got some small gold. You can use copper, you can use whatever color you want. It's just it's basically to hold your feather down more than anything. But the last thing I want to introduce, because of what I just talked to, and I've never talked about these, are hackle gauges. This thing, you can see it's right here, it's on my vise. It tells you, it's got, you wrap your, I'm going to show you in a second, you wrap your feather around it, and it tells you up to a size 4 what size hackle you're supposed to use. And so all you do is take your feather and reach around this thing. It's super simple. You know, you don't even have to pull the feather off your neck. You can just put it on there, you look over top of it, and you see how far it goes out, and you got a 14. So, onward. That's how we're going to do things. So we're going to start with this. I'm going to start my thread right up at the front. I'm going to leave room just about 3 turns. So I don't like to rush. I like to see that in there. I'm going to use that. I'm going to take my wire, tie this in right now. And this is, again, once you've gone past that X Caddis thing, and you know, like if you're a beginner tyer, this is a great one to start on, you know, when you're going to start using hackle and just getting used to how things are supposed to be put on. And this is a great fly. It's a great learning tool. Now I'm going to put I put the wire on and I pulled it, and I'm going to pull it just back a little bit. Normally when I use this stuff, I would take this and I would bend it over. I would fold it back so I couldn't pull it off. I just put nice tight turns on it, and I don't want to build any extra bulk on that. Got my hook in a little bit deep. I want you to be able to see the gouge, because I don't think I mentioned that in the first 2, is that you always end your thread right at the beginning of the scent of the barb or the gouge. So now I've got my wire in here. I've got my body set. I'm going to take some superfine dubbing. I'm going to do it in tan. I kind of stuck in there. This is, and again, you can use whatever you want body wise. Well, you can anyway, it's your fly. But I'm going to use the tan, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to bar it, or put the hackle in. I'm going to put in, I'm going to use dark bar ginger. You could use brown, you could use whatever you want. But I like that to contrast. I like it, you know, I like it to be a little bit lighter and then have the hackle in there. It kind of gives it a segmented thing to its body. And just like on the other ones, we're going to do nice tight wraps on this body. I want to be able to see that it's really tight. Don't want to build your bulk all at once. Remember that if you drop this and if it floats, that's a little heavy. That means there's too many fibers. You let it go and it floats like that, and it's over there, and I grab it. That's perfect. It's telling you that they're not gobbed up. You want every one of these fibers to go around this thread. Start it and just wrap away from you, so you're going clockwise. You're wrapping it around the thread. And you can see I'm going down the thread like this. I don't ever go in one spot over and over and over. I try to build it as I go. Just keep nice and tight. You can see how tight that thread that is around the hook, or the thread, I mean. And then just start working your way forward and build a little bit of a taper as you go. I'm going to run out here. I'm going to go almost to the eye, and then I'm going to reduce I'm going to reduce it just a little because we've got to get our hackle and our wire. That's why you don't want to go all the way to the eye. It's called rushing the eye. Don't rush it so that you don't have any place left. So I'm going to get right here. I'm going to have just a little bit right there. So now I got room to put in my hackle. I've got room to, and we're going to do this. You want it bigger at the front, small at the back. It's your taper. I've already measured this hackle, right? So I know it's a size 14. That's the hook that we're using. We're going to cut this. Just cut those ends off a little bit. Oh, I forgot to say in the beginning of that, we're going to use hair. I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to leave a little room right here. Don't want to be right at the eye. I came in from the right side, I hit my hackle, I went over it, came from behind, went over top of it, like that. And then I have 2 turns in front of it, and we can go. You see it's setting back. And I'm going to do this with my hand, so it's kind of a beginner fly. Just in case you're not using a rotary vise, I want 1 turn right here. Then we're going to just go over it. You could use your hackle pliers right now. I'm just going to do my hands here. Go over it. Nice even turns. Kind of rushed that one a little bit. Go all the way to the back. Come all the way around. Now you're going to take your wire. Grab your wire and just don't loosen pressure on that. And then just come through it. Hook that right there. And then just, oh, didn't like that turn. Then just go through it, head forward. You don't have to go slow, just go as fast as you can actually. Come right up through all that hackle. Get right to the eye. And you can see I've got a little bit of space there. I'm going to give it 2 turns, pull it and break it. And I'm going to go right over top of that wire. And the reason you do that in that direction is it actually tightens the wire. And I've seen people do it the other way, and it actually pushes the wire back. This way, the wire's going this way, your thread's going that way. It continues to tighten your wire, and you're not fighting it. Come in here and just cut him off nice and clean. Now, the thing I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video and the things we're using was the actual thing it's called, elk hair. Now, I personally don't know very many people that use elk hair on these. I never have. It was really hard for me back east when I started tying to even find elk hair that wasn't that long. And when I could find shorter stuff later in life, it was still quite a bit longer than it needed to be. And especially the tip part would be longer. And the tips, when you get into this stuff, when you get into this hair, and I've got a piece of bleach, I'm gonna go over that in a second. When you get into it, rather it's normal hair like this or bleached hair, which has been bleached, everything above this dark line, right here, when you see this line, everything above that is not hollow. So that is not a real floaty hair until you get down below this line. That's where the hollow hair is. And so I found it kind of difficult to find elk hair that was short enough, especially to do something this small. And so I always use short fine deer hair. And so the hair I'm using today is what I said on both the other ones. It's either Elk Caddis hair right here or Camberdon hair. They're frequently out of the same piece. It's just the length, and you know, it's usually pretty good on either one you find. And just like I said on the other one, this Nature Spirit hair is by far the best hair on the market. The owner Joel, he sorts this stuff out, and it's one of the few products I say you need to use this stuff because it's the best on the market. And so I have, in the other videos I mentioned that if you're having trouble seeing these flies, it doesn't really hurt if you want to lighten the hair up. You might only go, and you can see this one's in the package, but this one's pulled, but they're just a little different color. So if you're having trouble, it won't hurt the fly if you use the lighter color. I'm actually going to use that bleached on this one just because I've talked about it, and just so you can see, it's a nice bright, it'll be a nice bright wing. If you want to stick with the traditional gray, you know, you're splitting hairs there. I don't think it'd ever have any effect on your fly. Now I'm going to put just a little bit of dubbing on here. So I put that on, then I had to say what I was saying about that hair. And I'm just going to cover that wire up a little bit. And you can see I'm going to have a little, I came back just a little bit right there. And that's where I'm going to put my head in. I'm right where I had the bare part of the hook, and I put my wire in there about 3 turns worth. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put my wing right on top of that. So it's not up at the eye, it's going to be a little bit back from the eye. I'm going to take my swinger stacker, watch the other 3, I gave it a commercial, but mostly because I get asked so much, which one of these do I need? You know, do I need the all 4 sizes? They come in 4 sizes. This is the baby one here, this is the small, this is the large, you can see the difference. And I kind of went through it on the other ones, but I went kind of quick, but I want to show you what I'm talking about, because I think if I didn't have any of the other ones, I would definitely have this little one. This is the one that I use more than anything. I can stack deer hair for a streamer in my hand, but these obviously I use this, it makes it better. But the difference is this spot right here. That's where the hair comes down through the tube, comes in here, and you stack it, right? And so if you're using short fine hair, there's no way, it's going to fall out. And if you're using a tube style, when you stack it, you kind of pull it and you got to just be careful and hope it's there. With this little tiny stacker, with that size one right there, that hair comes down. You're never going to use hair shorter than that. Hair goes down, you stack it, you turn it like I'm going to, and you can look in and see if it's done. There's no guesswork. It's just, if you do a lot of small dry flies, take the luxury of getting one of those. It's one of the few times, like I said in the other ones, I ever do commercials, but and full disclosure, I own that company. I bought it from my buddy John Nicosia, but I bought it because I think it's such a great tool. It's the one of a kind. So now I'm going to take this, and because it's made for small hair, and I don't have a ton, I've got quite a bit in there. And so basically all I'm doing is I'm putting my thumb over this hole right here, put my thumb over it, and then just bump it on the table. Do not do that on your mother and father's dining room table or your wife's. Especially if you use this one, you go like that, because you'll be buying a new table. I know this from experience. So now I've stacked that hair and I turn it, and what you see is I can see, I'm trying to get that for the close-up, I can see if everything's exactly where I want it. And if it's not right, close it and do it again. That's the beauty of this thing. It's just so, it's right there in front of you. You can see it. I personally like the darker ones. Some people don't, because I can see the contrast in the hair. It comes in a bunch of colors. So, I'm going to take this. I shouldn't have taken that out of there because I wanted to say something. But you got to get in the habit of moving this around in your hand anyway. So you like to come in and roll this. And so I'm going to take this, and I want the hair to be the length of the body. And you see I keep rolling it, come over your finger, hold it before you let go. And you should be able to sit there and do that all day and not change this length. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to take my finger and my thumb, and I'm going to touch that. I'm going to touch the eye of the hook. So I'm looking right over the eye of the hook. It's a little bit short yet. So I'm going to come in here because I want it to be the length of the body when it's flared. So it's got to be slightly longer, because when you put it in, it's going to flare up like this. So if you make it like this and you're looking at it, if it's not a little bit long, when it flares up, it's going to be short. So you butt it up to the eye right here. And this is what we talked about this so many times on the other 2 flies. And I'm going to talk more about it as usual. Put that back in there so you're talking. When you do this style of head, and this one I'm going to do nice and full. The other 2 I did really sparse because I don't want them to be, they still have the head the way it's supposed to be, but nice and bulbous, but not in minor, right? It's much smaller. This one I'm going to make a little bit bigger so you can see how it is. People are used to seeing Elk Hair Caddis with a kind of a puffy head. And so, but ideally what you do this, when we do it right, you're going to put 2 turns of thread around this, and what's going to happen is all those hairs that are the same length when we cut them, when those things flare, there's going to be probably 50 hair butt ends all exactly the same length. So it's going to have this beautiful bulbous head, right? And so that does something. It stops that fly from sinking, and it gives it a beautiful look, and you don't have to go in and waste your time trimming on it. When you trim these things with scissors, I guarantee you'll never, ever even get it half as close as you will doing it this way. So I'm going to take this, kind of been in and out of that stacker twice now. So there we are, nice and clean, right where we want it. Get the crazy ones out of there. And look at it, see how long you want it. I want my, and that's personal too, by the way. You can do it however you want in length. But I like to butt my finger when it touches, and you can see, am I out of that right there? Okay, so I'm tying sideways. Can I turn that just a little bit, Jeremy? Yeah, right there. I think it'll be easier for you to see. I hope it didn't put you out of focus. You good?
Should be good.
Should be good. Okay, so I'm going to butt this up. I want it to be the tips, like when I lay right on top, I want them to be just you can see how far I want it, just a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch past the bend of the hook, so that when I tie it in, it flares up. So I'm going to go here, test it, transfer it, take your scissors, and I want a super clean cut. I want that just as flat as possible. Now we're going to take this thread. I didn't mention the thread. It's 12-aught Semperfli Nano Silk. I've got to be using this a lot for all my dry stuff. And so I'm going to come in here, and I want these ends. When you see my hand, I want it to be just a little bit past the eye of the hook, right there. I'm going to come in. I'm going to grab one, tighten it down a little bit. Don't let go with your left hand with your thumb and your finger. It's nice and tight around it. There's two. I'm squeezing the hook so that the hair can't go around the sides of the hook. And then I'm going to simply pull straight down. Look at that head. I mean, it's beautiful. It's all the same length. There's no trimming. It's nice and tight. You could go right through that again and stand them up and then go to the eye. That won't hurt a thing if you go one wrap through it. Now it's nice and tight. Come in here, do your whip finish. On the other ones, I left them a little bit small. This one I left it more in the traditional elk hair side of things. So when you look at it, you can see the hackle's all there. It's the right length. The wings, just when you push down just a little bit on it, I'm going to try to stay out of that camera. We're sideways. And you can see it's just slightly longer than the hook, because it's kind of distorted by the actual hackle. But everything in conjunction, the hackle, the placement of the wing, the head itself, all of that adds up to a fly that is incredibly buoyant. You can skate these things, you can twitch them. You really should get used to, if you've never read it, if you're readers, read the book by Leonard Wright Jr. I think it's called Fishing the Caddis as a Living Insect. It's like a 60s book. I think it's great. But anyway, you can learn to twitch these things. Caddis are runners, man. They're on the surface. Even if they're egg layer, if they're going through, when they're egg laying, they're running around. If they're going to dive to lay them, they're running all over. When they hatch, they're running all over. That's what makes these things really versatile, is that if you twitch this thing, it fishes a lot better than it does just flat out, if you learn to do it. It fishes better than it is if it's just flat laying there like this. But the beauty of it is, because it's got the hackle, it kind of gives that impression that it's moving anyway, even if it's dead drifting. So that's the way to do the head. That's the third one. Now go in here, and if you see a hackle sitting there like that one's sitting there, driving me crazy. If you see one, just clip it off. You did your counter wrap with your wires, which means this thing's virtually indestructible. The wing's gonna float it. Really, I mean, great fast water fly, super fast water fly. And you can do it in a bunch of sizes. I hope you liked it, and I hope that helps you out.